Hi, I'm Destiny from Nifty Knittings, and today I'm going to show you how to knit the broken rib knit mittens. Thank you to Yarnspirations for sponsoring this video. These mittens are written in sizes for toddler through adult men's, and they feature a really fun textured broken rib stitch. I'll be using Peyton's Lincoln Fog, which is a new bulky acrylic wool and Lincoln yarn blend. It has kind of a mohair-like look, which gives it a really nice halo when it's knitted up. I'll be using US 8 5.0 millimeter knitting needles. You can use either double pointed needles or circular needles and use the magic loop method. I'll be using the magic loop method, but if you are using double pointed needles, just make sure you evenly divide the stitches over 4 needles. We are going to begin with a long tail cast on. To measure how long of a tail I'll need, I like to wrap my yarn around my needle about 10 times. And this is roughly how much yarn I'll need for 10 stitches. If I hold that double, this is roughly how much I'll need for 20, and again for 30. So this is where I will place my slip knot. And for video demonstration purposes, I will be knitting the women's size, so make sure you're following along with the correct numbers for the size that you are knitting. So for the women's size, I will be casting on 30 stitches. And again, we're going to use the long tail cast on. I will actually cast on 1 extra stitch because that's how I like to join in the round, by passing the last stitch over the first stitch, but feel free to use whichever method you're comfortable with. I have all my stitches casted on, and I'm using the magic loop method, so I'm going to slide them to the middle of my cable and find the middle point between the stitches. And then I'll just bend my cable in half and pull it through halfway through the stitches. So my front needle here are the stitches that will be worked first, and I will slide those up onto the needle. And then I will pull a little cable on this side as well. So since I cast on 1 extra stitch, I'm going to go ahead and pull the cable between those last 2 stitches as well, and I'll show you how I join in the round here. So I like to slip the first stitch I cast on onto my right needle, and then slip the last stitch that I cast on over it. So it decreases 1 stitch and it gives a really nice join in the round. And I'm going to treat that first stitch as a knit stitch. We'll be working in knit 1, purl 1 rib. So I'm going to purl the next stitch and just keep knitting 1 and purling 1. For the women's size, we will knit 8 rounds and knit 1, purl 1 rib. So there's the first half of my stitches, and I'm just going to turn this around and pull on my cable to slide those next stitches onto my needle and pull the other needle out and get that tail out of the way, and just keep repeating knit 1, purl 1. Okay, made it to the end of my round. Turn it again. And we'll just keep repeating this round 7 more times. So I finished the cuff of my mitten. I have 8 rounds and knit 1, purl 1 rib. And this next round, I'm just going to knit 1 round. So knit all the stitches in this round. I finished knitting 1 round, and now I'm just going to do another round of ribbing. So we're going to knit 1, purl 1 around. And these 2 rounds, the plain knitting round and the ribbed round, will form our broken rib pattern. So after this round, we will repeat the previous 2 rounds, a plain knit round and a ribbed round, as many times as indicated for your size. So for the women's size, we'll repeat these 2 rounds once more. At this point, we will begin increasing along one side for our thumb gusset. So we are going to continue working in our pattern just until we get right before this last stitch here, and then we will start increasing. So this is the first round of the thumb gusset. For the women's size, I'm going to knit 14. Now just before the last stitch here, we are going to do a make 1 right increase. And to do that, I'm going to bring my left needle from the back through the front of the horizontal bar between these 2 stitches and knit through the front of that stitch. Our next stitch will be a knit 1, turn our work, and then we're going to do a make 1 left right before the first stitch of this side. So for this one, we'll insert our needle from the front to the back underneath that horizontal bar and knit through the back of that stitch. Then we will continue knitting until the end of the round. Okay, so I'll show you what this looks like on a finished mitten. Basically, we're increasing along one side only to add a little extra space for the thumb. So you can see the make 1 left increases here and the make 1 right on this side. For round 2, for the women's size, we will knit 1, purl 1 7 times. And then we will purl 1, knit 1, turn our work here, we're going to purl 2, and then knit 1, purl 1 7 times more. So basically how we treat the gusset stitches will vary depending on the size that you're knitting. We want to maintain our broken rib stitch pattern, and that's a little bit different with each size. Okay, now we're going to have round 3, which is another increase round. I'm going to knit 14, And I'm going to do, let's see here, I'm going to do another make one right. So bring my needle under that horizontal bar between stitches and knit through the front of that stitch. Then I'm going to just knit the next 3 stitches. There's 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm going to do another make one left. So bringing my needle under that bar from the front to the back and knitting through the back. And then I'm just going to knit all the stitches to the end of that round. For the 4th round, we are going to knit 1, purl 1 all the way around. For the 5th round, we have another increase round. So again, I'm going to knit 14. And make one right. Then I'm going to knit 5. 1, 2, 3, turn my work. Four, 5, and make one left. And then knit to the end of that round. For the 6th round, I'm going to knit 1, purl 1 7 times. And then I'm going to purl 1, knit 1 3 times. Turn my work. Then I'm going to purl 2, and I'm going to knit 1, purl 1 to the end of the round. For the 7th round, I'm going to knit 14, and make one right. And knit 7. and make one left, then knit to the end. For the 8th round, I'm just going to knit one, purl one all the way around. The 9th round is another increase round. Again, I'm going to knit 14, make one right, knit 9, make one left, and knit to the end of the round. Okay, the 10th round, we're just going to knit one, purl one 7 times, and then we're going to purl one, knit one 5 times. And then purl 2, and then knit 1, purl 1 to the end of the round, so 7 times more. And we are done increasing, so for the 11th round, I'm just going to knit around. And for the 12th round, I'm going to repeat round 10. So knit 1, purl 1 7 times. And purl 1, knit 1 5 times. Purl 2, and then knit 1, purl 1 to the end of the round. Now we are ready to separate the increased stitches for the thumb. So we're basically going to knit to our thumb stitches here and put those on some scrap yarn. So for the women's size, I'm going to knit 14. And then I'm going to place these next 11 stitches on some scrap yarn. And we will work those thumb stitches after we are finished with the body of the mitten. So I'm just threading some scrap yarn on my yarn needle. And I'm going to slip these stitches onto the scrap yarn. So for the women's size, we'll be slipping 11 stitches. So 6 from this side and 5 from this side. Okay. And then going back to the first side here, we are going to cast on 1 extra stitch. I like to use the backwards loop cast on. So just kind of grab the yarn and hook my thumb under the yarn and bring my needle underneath the yarn to cast on. So hook under and bring the needle under and slide that stitch onto the needle and tighten it up. Not too tight, but you want it to be nice and snug. Okay, so we are back to 30 stitches again. And we are going to continue knitting to the end of this round. The next round, we are just maintaining our stitch pattern at this point, so we're going to knit 1, purl 1, all the way around. So we'll just keep repeating a ribbed round with a plain knit round for our stitch pattern. And we want to repeat these rounds until the mitten measures 6 1/4 inches or 16 centimeters long for the women's size. So I finished knitting the body of my mitten and I'm going to start the decreases. So for the first round, we are going to SSK, slip, slip, knit. I'm going to slip 2 stitches to my right needle knitwise and bring my left needle through the front of those stitches and then knit them together. And then knit 11. And knit these 2 stitches together. We will do the exact same thing on the other half. So again, slip, slip, and knit these 2 together. Knit 11. And knit 2 together. For the second round of decreases, it'll be very similar, but we're also maintaining our rib pattern. So again, we're going to slip, slip, knit, purl 1, knit 1 4 times for the women's size, purl 1, knit 2 together. The other half will be slightly different. Again, we're going to slip, slip, knit, knit 1, purl 1 4 times, knit 1, and knit 2 together. For the third round, we'll slip, slip, knit, knit 7, and knit 2 together. The other side will be exactly the same. Slip, slip, knit, knit 7, and knit 2 together. Round 4 will be another ribbing round. So slip, slip, knit, purl 1, knit 1 2 times, purl 1, knit 2 together. And the other side, slip, slip, knit, knit 1, purl 1 2 times, knit 1, and knit 2 together. Okay, round 5. We're going to slip, slip, knit, knit 3, knit 2 together, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Slip, slip, knit, knit 3, knit 2 together. Okay, now we're down to 10 stitches for the women's size, and we are done with the body of the mitten. So we are going to cut our yarn, thread it on a yarn needle, and slip all of our stitches onto it. And then we can just close up the top. So I just pull it tight like a drawstring. And I like to weave my needle back through that first stitch to secure it. And then right through the center of the little hole. And pull that snug. And that's it for the body of the mitten. And next up we will work on the thumb. So for the thumb stitches, we'll remove our scrap yarn and put all of these stitches back on our needles. And we'll be picking up one extra stitch right where we had cast on one stitch for the body of the mitten. So I'm going to put a little less than half of the stitches on my front needle here. So I'm doing 5 for the women's size, and then I'll do 6 stitches for the back side of the needle. I'm just slipping them from our scrap yarn right onto the needle. And once you have them all on your needles, you can just pull that scrap yarn right out. Okay, I'm going to slide those stitches onto my needle. And now we want to pick up and knit one stitch right where we had cast on one stitch with our backwards loop method. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to seam up any gaps at the end, but just right here, right in that big gap. Just going to put my needle right through. And grab my working yarn and simply wrap it around the needle. And pull that through the stitch. So we picked up and knit one stitch. This is the first stitch of our round. And I'm going to knit to the end of the round. Okay, so for round 2, I'm just going to knit one, purl one around, and please make sure you're reading the instructions for the size you're knitting, because some sizes will start with a purl one, knit one. Just depends on how the gusset stitches worked out. Okay, again for the women's size, I'm going to knit one, purl one, all the way around. And we'll repeat a plain knit round with the ribbed round 4 times more for the women's size. Okay, I finished working my thumb and I'm ready for the decreases. So I'm going to slip, slip, knit, knit 2, and knit 2 together. And we'll repeat this for the other side. Slip, slip, knit, knit 2, and knit 2 together. Now we have 8 stitches. I'm just going to cut my yarn. And thread it through those 8 stitches. And I'll close it up just like I did the top of the mitten. So I just like to thread my yarn right through that first stitch. And then straight through the center of the hole. And pull it snug. So we will weave in all of our ends. But I do want to show you how to weave in the end at the base of the thumb to avoid having a gap. Let's turn this inside out. When you try the mitten on, you'll notice that there's a gap on either side of the thumb. Nothing huge, but we do want to close it up. So I'll show you how I do that. So I'm threading the yarn tail from the base of the thumb onto my yarn needle. And I just like to weave my yarn around that little hole. Then you can kind of cinch it close. So just down and then back up through the stitch, right around the gap, and pull it snug. And do the same thing on the other side. Just weave right around it. And pull it snug. I'll just continue weaving in my tail for a couple of stitches. And trim my yarn. And that's it. So we'll weave in the rest of these ends and repeat all of the steps for the second mitten. Then you have a nice warm textured mitten for all sizes for your family. And that's all there is to it. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks to Yarnspirations for sponsoring this video.